All right, everybody, welcome to the last actual page we'll be creating in our first full website. So this is what our gallery page is going to look like when we are done. It's not the gallery, it's the favorite sites page. It's going to look like when we're done. We're going to have our 10 favorite websites, and what we're going to have is a little effect where when we put our mouse over something, the image is going to shrink and we're going to actually show some text. It's not a perfect effect, but it's a little interesting. And it's going to show a link like that. So again, not perfect, but it's a good example of how this transition is going to be used. And it's something that you can do. There are some other options I was hoping for, but they did not work out as easily. So this is going to be what we do. So let's go ahead and go for that. I'm going to get this kind of going here. And let's get into some code. So what we're going to do first, we have our gallery page is completely working. Control A is copy, or select all. Control C is copy. And in our favorite sites, we're just going to paste in our gallery. So we're going to start with what we have already, and then we will go from there. So what we need to go, we have our closing container tag. We have this other div tag here that we put. So we have this end of gallery item. We're going to select everything all the way up to our flex container, which for me is on line 32. So we want, or that didn't work out so hot. We want this flex container to stay, and we want everything inside of it to go. So we want the end of the gallery item. So what we have left is we have just our flex container opening and closing div. We're going to comment this up real quick. To say that that's the end of the flex container, just for the good sake, and it would have been easier had we done that the first time. Our H2 is going to be our 10 favorites sites. That'll be perfect. And then the other things we have to change on the top is the title and the H1. So this is not the gallery, this is the favorite sites. And again, gallery on line 10 is favorite sites. So if everything is good, when you go back through and you click on your favorite sites page, this is what you should have. It should say 10 favorite sites. You should still have working links to all of your other pages, and we should have kind of a blank slate. And make sure in the top here it says first website favorite sites on the top and in the title. Okay, so assuming that's all set to go, we're going to have to do a little bit of HTML. And hopefully we're going to do this quick. I'm going to copy and paste some of the stuff on here. Maybe not so much for the HTML, definitely for the CSS. So there's not as much listening to me type. And there's a little bit more probably fast forwarding at this point. Or just listening as I explain. So we have our Flex container. This is where we're going to start. Inside of our Flex container, we're going to have a div. And this div is going to have a class of site-item. Very similar to like Flex item or gallery item. We just have a little bit different stuff going on in this one. So it's going to be the same sort of setup. So inside of our site item, we're going to comment again. Oops. So we can know that this is where the site item ends before we get a whole bunch of stuff inside of it. So our site item is going to have in this an H3. And this will be, we'll say number 1. And then site name. So you're going to number these 1 through 10. It'll be easier to kind of look as you go if they're all numbered. So Then inside of this, we're going to have two different things. So this one is going to be a box where we put our image, site-image. And then inside of that, we're going to have our image tag. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put this image tag in for the sake of ease. This is going to be the same exact sort of thing we've done on all the other ones where we have our placeholder image that goes in, just so we can make sure everything works. You saw that on the demo too. So after our site image, we're going to have one more div tag, and this is going to be the site description. So this is that content that we're going to hide and show based on whether our mouse is over it or not. So inside of this, we're going to just have a couple of placeholder things. Uh-oh, I think I missed something already. So inside of here, our site description is going to have a paragraph and a link, just like that. So inside of our site item, these are going to be actually the two sections right here. Now, here's what I missed. And so we're going to say this is right after our H3. This was a mistake on my part. I apologize. I apparently overlooked it. This is why I do some copy and paste, by the way. So we're going to have a div, which is going to have a class of site-content. So now inside of our site content, this is going to be something we display as a flex box. Our site image and our site description will be the two flex elements. And right before the end of our site item, we're going to need to put that closing div tag that matches. So we want this, and I'm going to show you this. And you can C-O-N-T-E-N-T. My fault. And you can see why we label these things. There's like 3 of them in a row, and it's really actually 4 of them in a row. It's really confusing, but that's kind of how modern web stuff goes. So this is our full site item right here. If you're double checking, this is the spots where you really are going to want to pause and make sure that you have everything. You have your div, your H3, the main section for our content, which will be split into 2, the site image, the site description, and then we have all of our closing tags at the end. That's a full site item. Now, before we copy and paste, let's finish our CSS. You're going to obviously need 10 of these. We have 10 favorite sites. That's how it's going to work out. So let's just make sure that this works for one and I haven't messed up before we go and do multiples. So onto the CSS. As we transition here, as I go back and forth here, I'm just going to give you a couple of quick elements. We have gallery hover for our overlay stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a comment, and then we're going to have 2 separate little things here, and I'm going to put these on, and I'm going to highlight them so you can see them. This is the new stuff right here. Our comment saying this is where favorite site starts. Our items are going to be 30%. We're going to do some of the basics here with the margin, and the transition is the thing that makes it so it looks really not very rigid, but it transitions nice and easily. And then for our site content, that's going to be, remember those 2 sides that we have as a flex box. So we're not at a point yet where we can actually do anything. This is going to be a tough one So I'm going to try and give you a couple more sections at a time here. So for our image and our image tag here inside of our site, this is going to be the thing that kind of makes things work out. So our image is very standard here, where we have the box for our image is going to take up, to start with, 100% of our item, and then we're going to transition it, and our image tag is the actual image is going to take up 100% of the width. So this is where you can start to test. So if we go back and we refresh, we should have something that looks about like this. Although, okay, yep, then we have one more line that's going to make this work out. So this is kind of where we should look right now. We have one item and we can see both things. So now, as we go back, what we're going to do is something that's going to look potentially a little bit weird, but we are going to go and put one more section on, which is going to be for the description. So our description is going to start with a width of 0. So what we're going to do essentially is we're going to hide that. And so what this should do with that one little chunk that I just put on is it'll take it from this where you can see the description to this where it's just the image. So, and that's the effect. If you remember, the effect we're going for is when we hover, we're going to show the text. And when we go away, that's going to be the effect. So right now we're setting up this effect where we have our everything for our description hidden. So the last couple sections here are going to be pretty straightforward. And I'm just going to show you the setup of these is going to be a little bit different. We have to be fairly specific on this as to exactly what we're doing. And these two things right here that I'm about to put on for you, these are the things that make our effect work. So for when we put our cursor over our site item for the description, we're going to change the width to 50%. Oops, sorry. And we're going to just add some padding and font size. And then for we're going to change our site image box from 100% to 50%. So what should happen if this works right is when you put your mouse over, you should be able to then see the text. That's your effect. So now you can mess with some of these numbers a little bit if you want. Like the 50 and the 50, you could change that. You can make the transition time as opposed to half a second. You can make the transition time a little longer than that. It is totally up to you. But now this is the final spot where if everything works, we're going to take our site item and we're going to copy this entire site item, everything from the opening div of site item to the closing we just commented. And we need 9 more. So that will be the number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And if everything works and you copied it actually 10 times, you should have 10 boxes. And each one of them should shrink like this. The effect should work on every single one. Life should be wonderful. All right. As always, if you have any questions, please do let me know. This one is more of a demonstration of how we make certain things work. It's a neat little effect. And now you're going to be able to go on and finish it. And I'll talk about finishing it and uploading this to GitHub so I can grade it for you in a very short little bit.